Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GBNews for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good evening, I'm Simon Evans, and very shortly I will be presenting Headliners with my guest this evening, taking a look at Tuesday morning's papers. Before that, though, here's Polly with the news.
Thank you very much. Our top story tonight, Ukraine's president says the war in his country is far from over. Russia has begun the Battle of Donbass as Moscow begins a new offensive push along most of the country's eastern border. Earlier, a Ukrainian minister assessed that Russia's invasion has damaged up to 30% of his country's infrastructure. And today, there's been heavy bombardment in the east and the west of the country, with 7 people killed in the west in Lviv after a Russian missile strike hit the city there. President Zelensky says tough sanctions mean Russia will eventually be unable to replenish its military arsenal.
The Russian army is not slowing down the use of missiles against Ukraine, although it should have realised that it will be extremely difficult for Russia to restore the missile stocks facing even existing sanctions. Without imports, they can't do even that. And when all the loopholes used to circumvent sanctions are closed, and when even tougher sanctions are imposed, restoring Russia's missile capabilities will be unrealistic. That is, Russian missile strikes lead to only one thing: missile self-demilitarization of the Russian Federation.
President Zelensky. Well, a former British soldier captured by Russia should be treated humanely like a prisoner of war, his family says. Sean Pinner, who was taken while fighting in Mariupol, and another British citizen, Aidan Aslin, appeared on Russian state TV asking for help to return home. It's not clear how freely the pair could speak.
To Boris Johnson, obviously I'm Sean Pinner. A lot's gone on over the last 5 or 6 weeks that I'm not fully aware of. Obviously, I understand that Mr. Medvedchuk has been detained, and we look to exchange myself and Aidan Aslin for Mr. Medvedchuk. Obviously, I'd really appreciate your help in this matter and pushing this agenda.
Sean Pinner talking. Well, Ukraine has now completed the latest stage of its application to join the European Union. Following a meeting with his cabinet, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky handed over a finished questionnaire to the EU's ambassador to Ukraine. He described the application for membership as a formality, saying the Ukrainian people have been part of Europe for a long time. The footballer Cristiano Ronaldo has announced that his newborn son has died, but that the baby's twin, a daughter, has been born safely. The footballer and his partner, Georgina Rodriguez, shared the news on social media this evening, saying, "It is with our deepest sadness that we have to announce that our baby boy has passed away. It is the greatest pain that any parents can feel. Only the birth of our baby girl gives us the strength to live this moment with some hope and happiness." And the couple have asked for privacy at this difficult time. On TV, online and on your radio via DAB+, you're with GB News. And now it's time for Headliners.
And back to headliners. Good evening, I'm Simon Evans. Joining me tonight, two transatlantic titans of the comedy scene. That's what it says here. Dave Fulton and Scott Capurro, representing two potential climates you can enjoy in the North American continent as well, I think it's fair to say. Two modes of being. I don't know whether it's like, you've got a kind of vibe of the tennis club, the Floridian, no, I'm not saying retirement village, but just kind of like a certain a leisured lifestyle.
Thanks for that.
Dave is still very much nightclubs and martinis and bouncers and that.
Mountain man, a bit mountain.
Mountain man, yeah.
Yeah, you're that as well.
Rosemont Falls by day and knocking over liquor stores at night.
Anyway, listen, you've done a few of these, I think, but just we've managed to dance around each other until now. This is our debut together.
It is.
After many years on the circuit, going back quite a long way. We were discussing some of the highlights earlier, like you helping me to drain my oil, an overfilled oil...
In Nottingham,
in Nottingham.
We created a super fun cleanup site by dropping about 5 litres of oil down the streets of Nottingham.
There was probably a seagull at the bottom of that, wasn't there?
Probably clean the place up.
Yeah. Lots of beautiful iridescent puddles. Anyway, we have some headlines to get through, gentlemen. Let's take a look. We start with the Daily Mail. And they have foreign spies hack into number 10. We will be taking a look at that story in some detail. Also, two rather more distressing personal stories, as we heard there, Ronaldo's grief as newborn twin dies, and Sir Bradley Wiggins with allegations, I don't quite know how do you put that, but anyway, it says he was sexually groomed at the age of 13. Our next story is from the Daily Telegraph. Stop homeworking, civil service to be told. They're obviously finding too many of their employees enjoying the slipper and early late start lifestyle. There is some pictures there from Putin's prisoner swap and costly green energy level may be scrapped. Quite a lot of detail on their front page this morning. The Guardian have gone with number 10, suspected of being targeted by Pegasus spyware, Johnson is told. And a scene from Ukraine, I think it's fair to assume, on the front cover, dominating on the pictures. We have the Financial Times with Asda's private equity buyer puts 20-fold return on value of stake. Funny enough, we will not be covering that one. And Russian missile strikes on Lviv kill 7. The Mirror has Johnson's walk of shame. They at least remain focused laser-like on the Partygate ramifications. The Times have Zelensky, next phase of the war has begun, and a nicely angled photograph of President Biden there demonstrating his bunny wings, bunny ears. I don't know quite what those are supposed to be. They seem growing out of his shoulders for ears. But anyway, how to tone your arms and legs for summer as well. And a picture of Macron's extraordinary hairy chest, which has made a few front pages this morning. The Metro has half price rail fares, 1 million tickets to be reduced this spring. And the Daily Star, as always, breaking with all consensus. Don't beam us up. NASA risks war with ET by pinging Earth's location to the galaxy. Don't tell them your location, Pike. We will, amazingly, be covering that story. However, that's it for the headlines. So we've actually got quite a fractured array of different stories there on the front cover, Scott, but I think we're going to go with the spy story first of all. That seems to be just about top of the heap.
Oh, right. Well,
Pegasus. You've been covering that?
As it turns out, number 10's been hacked by the infamous NSO group. And every time I see that name, the NSO group, I think there's some sort of, non-profit, and I should admire them.
Yeah.
I think the name is meant to confuse us.
Yeah, like a Quango or an NGO. Yeah,
exactly, an NGO. They're out of Israel. They were formed in 2016, a company that makes malware, software, that they say is meant to discourage crime in countries and terrorism.
Yes, government. So it's licensed to governments.
It is.
Yeah.
But what governments have been using it for, in some cases, is to find journalists and kill them, or other naughty
Khashoggi,
things.
you're saying it was used.
Well, it was traced to that. Yeah, exactly.
And what can it do exactly? I think it can see you through your own camera phone.
It can. It gets in through your phone or your computer, but mostly through your phone because that's the most accessible way. And without the user knowing it, it traces your whereabouts. It looks at your photos. It sucks up all your information and hands it back to the person tracing you.
Does it spot your typos on Twitter?
Everything. Yeah, I know.
Well, usually with the phone, you say, you see a little dot on. You're like, oh, my camera's on. Now I know it is. But with this one, it doesn't. The little dot doesn't come on.
And you don't have to push
You don't even know. You can just literally be sitting there holding your phone going, hey, what's going on now?
Exactly.
And it will be recording you, and it won't have the little dot to let you know anything.
And also, you don't have to. You can't be kind of cheated with some weird email or text into pressing a button. You don't have to press anything.
No.
It just finds you.
It's not just because you've been on Pornhub and you go onto the secret channel.
You're sharing so much about yourself tonight.
Secret channel.
I did actually. I mean, I don't know if this is. I think that was one generation of spyware was used. I have a barrister friend who was saying it's extraordinary actually the number of people who do end up in court because they have been blackmailed usually by.
I got one of those.
companies.
I got one of those.
Yeah.
I got an email that said that we will release a video of you masturbating in front of this if you don't. And I said, could I please see the video? And yes,
Lord.
Can I pay you to release it?
It might do for you what it did for Kim Kardashian. The Dave Fulton sex tape.
I'm all over that. Yeah,
you in shorts and a football jersey. Or at least that's how I picture it.
I mean, in all seriousness, I remember about 5 or 6 years ago there was a photograph of Zuckerberg on his Apple Mac, showing you how to use Facebook, and everyone noticed he had a bit of elastoplast over his camera.
Yeah.
They quite often do that. The guys who know it,
a lot of
same
people
ones
do
who will
it.
say, "I will never give my teenage daughter a phone. I will cover everything."
Well, I think people feel safe using their phones. I think they feel like it's their best friend.
Yeah.
And your best friend can be quite naughty as well.
Well,
Anyway.
I have a thing, this is another tiny, trivial domestic version of it, but my wife has installed something on the kids' phones and her phone where you can see where each other are. And this is all very cute, right? And I refused to have it.
Yeah, I don't want
And then
to
the other day, I said, where's Mum? And my son checked. And she was with my daughter in London, which we thought they weren't together. There was some secret thing going on, and I accused. I mean, it wasn't a big deal, but you can easily see how. I mean, it's already slightly
If you can manage that with your son, then yeah, prefer.
I kind of feel that's a slightly weird.
It's creepy.
I don't know that we're.
I'm sorry.
It's like it's
creepy.
wrong, isn't
It's
it?
just creepy. No,
It makes me feel like I'm in a box, like I'm being watched all the time. It's really strange. And we
not
are being
good
watched
for
all the
us.
time anyway,
Yeah.
but especially with
Well,
this.
we always used to say, I remember when I was about 12, when I gradually became aware that I didn't really believe in Jesus and God anymore. And then my grandfather died, and I suddenly had an idea of him watching me. I had that for 2 or 3 years, his specific ghost, and it wasn't in a very Christian sense, but it was quite an effective one.
Yeah,
in
it
terms of
controlled your
moderating my
behaviour a little bit.
behaviour.
Yeah.
Because he was actually quite a cool guy. He was. Like John Wayne was his kind of hero, rough justice and everything. So it wasn't being watched in a
Racist
bad
cowboy.
way. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it was
racist
like,
cowboy.
make sure you don't.
Yeah. Wash your hands when you come in from.
Keep your thumbs out of the way when you're putting your fists up, that kind of thing.
I mean, I wish that's what this was, but it's much more surreptitious than that. And apparently, a company out of Toronto, Citizens Lab, has identified number 10 as having been hacked by this kind of malware.
And a number of countries have been, I think. We're reporting on it happening here, but
they're keeping an eye on number 10 because they said number 10 has become a target for some reason. And apparently all the SIM cards of all the phones they've noticed have been hacked with the number 10. They're not identifying which device specifically. They're just saying they're getting an aura, a sense, a feeling.
Well, Johnson's going to have a few burners anyway. His lifestyle.
I feel like all his secrets have been revealed, and we're still letting him do what he does. I mean, 50 pounds a pop. He's not going to stop, I don't think. I think that getting a sort of that 50-pound fine just means another party, really. Another reason to celebrate.
The thing is, that would really bother me about that is the fact that because during that whole thing going down, I wanted to go to Scotland to go ice climbing.
You'd have paid 50 quid for that, would you?
And I was told by somebody very close to me who was a police officer, said, well, as soon as you're out of your region, you're going to be fined 200 pounds every time. And I had 1,000 pounds of cash, and I told my climbing partner, let's go. The conditions in Scotland are great. And he's like, no, I can't do it. And it was 200 pounds, and he gets 50?
Yeah.
That's a change jar. That's the change in
Well, he and his wife, so
rate.
that's 100, and it might go 12 times over, so 1,200 altogether, maybe.
The best fine I ever paid, we were in Italy near Rome, and we hired a car and drove into Rome. I think there was they had mentioned something, we didn't understand it. It turns out it's like a congestion charge, but you just cannot go if you haven't got the right registration that day.
Yeah.
It was no traffic on the roads at all. I parked right outside the Pantheon. I mean, literally, like on the steps of like one of the world's great monuments, you know. And then when you get home, it was like a 90 quid fine for driving through. And I was like, that was totally worth it.
Yeah, totally worth it.
You know, in Montana and back in America, they used to have this deal that there was no, you had to drive within the speed limit for the conditions kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the cops will pull you over for doing like 80 miles an hour, and you didn't get a speeding ticket. You got a ticket for misuse of natural resources.
Nice.
And it was a $20 fine payable on the spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my buddy John Steele says, "Here's $100. I'm going to speed through the whole state." But yeah, that's what it is.
I do feel like we've gone off topic a little bit. But anyway,
we've got to get on to our next
national
story.
safety is under.
We have
under
the police speaking to Nicola Sturgeon over a suspected breach of face mask law. I mean, in a way, this is, I suppose, the Scottish equivalent of the party fine, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it depends. Is it trivial or is it one rule for them?
It is incredibly trivial. After being in Scotland so many times and going and seeing people wearing face masks in and out and around, and like, is supposed to wear in here, this and that. Meanwhile, the rest of the free world is not using their face masks anymore. It's kind of like, when you first get up there, you're like, what does Scotland know that I don't know? Kind of, among a lot of other things, besides the fact that, you know, how to eat fried food and drink. But the other than that, no, I just thought, you know, and then she just takes it off, and then she starts apologizing and backtracking. Oh, this is going to ruin my chances for this, you know, and and then it's just, what is it? Within days before the whole face mask thing was dropped, it's like, you know, she has to apologize. Well, it's going to be in a couple days. I mean, it's like COVID's going, oh look, we got 2 more days, guys. Come on, we got to get the PM at this point.
I think it's more sinister that she's in a barber shop, to be honest.
Well,
that's going to fuel rumours.
Maybe she's going through a bit of menopause. Menopause getting a little cleanup, you know, from the menopause, the extra hormones whipping through her.
I do feel a little bit sorry for her because I think she's probably being, you know, there's a lot of people who've been waiting to land a glove on her.
Oh, yeah.
She's expressed so much delight over Westminster.
This is all you can find on her. Come on, man. Yeah. She's Teflon.
Scott, Priti Patel, Rwanda plan critics failed to offer their own solutions. This is rumbling on. Obviously, the Rwanda thing, which emerged out of nowhere a few days ago and still feels faintly surreal to me.
Well, actually,
the
bill was introduced to Parliament last July. It was called the Nationality and Borders Bill.
Right.
I don't know if it's still called that, but anyway, it was a bill that was being criticized even then. A lot of people didn't think it would go any further just because it was seen as so brutal.
Yeah.
And even criticized by politicians in Australia who had a similar policy that they walked away from because it was so horribly received.
Well, their one is, it's slightly, actually, in a way, it's arguably, as you say, less brutal insofar as they have a sort of holding.
They do.
Whereas this is, the idea is it's like a game of snakes and ladders. If you made it to France, but if you cross the channel, you're in Rwanda.
Yeah, you are in Rwanda. and the idea is that Priti Patel hopes that the countries these citizens come from take them back.
Yeah.
And she's set up within this law a sub-law that if they don't take them back, they're not going to get any more visas legally.
No.
And what this is meant to handle is those who have arrived in the UK unauthorized, which is about 6 out of 10 of those who come over. Apparently, it's just.
I mean, it certainly has. It's escalated vastly in the last 3 years. It has gone up massively. There are going to be more deaths. There have already been some. It is obviously an extraordinarily dubious black market. You know, it's people leapfrog regardless. You look at the individuals and say you feel sorry for them, but if you bend the system, but this feels an extraordinarily extreme. It's almost viscerally extreme.
Well, you know, the thing is, I think people see Rwanda and they think about the genocides, but it's been quite a while.
Oh, I think it's a better place now.
Much better place. No, it is much safer now.
I
Rwanda
believe it is. Yeah, it's part of the British Commonwealth, despite not having been part of the British Empire. I think it applied to actually become part of the Commonwealth.
Rwanda, I mean, how do you...
I know.
Well, you know what? People are coming into our country legally. Well, 6 out of 10. You know, we got to do something. How do we process them? I don't know where you want to send them. And somebody heard them, what about Rwanda? And everybody went, oh my God, this guy's thinking out of the box. Well, Rwanda!
They thought about Gibraltar for a while. Gibraltar didn't go for it.
Why not the Isle of Man or something?
Well,
I'm sorry.
The Isle of Man is extraordinarily, that's more harsh than
Can you imagine being in Rwanda and watching this and they go, we're sending Rwanda, and everybody in Rwanda is going, what?
It's actually quite safe for foreigners in Rwanda. Now it is, but it's not the point. I don't think a plane is never going to land in Rwanda with refugees on it from the UK because I don't think that they need agreements between France and Belgium about the channel, and they're not going to go along with it either. So no one's going to agree to this. I think it's clearly just something to gain votes from their base.
It's or I suppose to reset the dial in terms of what is the what is the baseline, what is normal
Of
here.
course.
You know,
But she also knew that Rwanda would get a headline because people would have that sort of reaction that you're reacting to now without having looked it up. And I understand the reaction totally. But I think what they're trying to do is just wash their hands of the entire responsibility.
Yes.
And that's not possible.
Well, it is Easter.
Well,
It's very expensive.
I see cash involved. That's all I see. And, it's like, everybody's going, hey, we got to get rid of these people.
They're paying a lot
and they
for
put it out to this, and Rwanda goes, hey, we'll take them in for so many ahead. And they went, that's
well, arguably, that is a good way to level up. Dave, we have women in England's poorest areas die younger than in most OECD countries. So this is a confusing statistic. Break it down for us.
Well, first off, it's understandable because, it's cheaper to eat bad. It's cheaper to eat unhealthy. So unhealthy eating obviously going to lead to, some complications regarding, your own personal, well-being. I mean, obesity and heart troubles and hypertension and everything else like this. So this is going to lead to, early death.
Yeah.
And once again, I have a real problem with this. It's so expensive to eat well. You eat, gluten-free and
broccoli's cheap.
Yeah, but
there's no calories in it, though, are there? Really?
Yeah,
that's the trouble.
You eat a ton of broccoli, you weigh a ton. That'll joke. But still,
make your own beans.
Yeah, and what also kind of bothers me, you and I were talking about this earlier, is it's all concentrating on women are dying younger.
Yeah.
But then women live longer than men. And now suddenly, this is the most important thing. But the men are maybe I don't know. The men are not bringing home enough money to.
But that gap has decreased between men and women dying, especially because of COVID. That lowered the life expectancy anyway.
Yeah.
And men tended to die more from COVID than women. But yet that span between the two has...
It's still there. It feels to me like it's a slightly odd way to conflate two issues. One issue being that poverty implicates lower life expectancy, and the second one being this kind of gender gap thing, which I guess, maybe that is also worth looking at. But given that women die later than men, that seems to be confusing. They would have been better off to just focus on the wealth gap, having a life expectancy implication.
And they do sort of in that. And they also say that there's also a statistic about life health, meaning more people from poorer communities have less of an enjoyable end-of-life experience. They're much sicker at an earlier period in their life.
Yeah.
Sometimes a third of their life is spent in ill health.
Wow.
But also women tend to die more from respiratory issues. And I know that because I researched this when my mother was dying.
Yeah.
And oftentimes that has to do with cleaning supplies that they've used.
Really?
were. Yeah.
Yeah.
You put strong cleaning supplies in hot water and it's really affected their lungs badly. So they tend to die from tuberculosis more often.
It was quite striking, though, when you look at the whole list of countries. I looked at the actual sort of infographic of it and the way that the poorest areas that we have do compete with places like Mexico and so on. And then, of course, the wealthiest, I think we're number 2 only to Japan or something. You know? So it is an extraordinary span.
It is.
But again, maybe that is a good, that's a good incentive, right? Work hard, get yourself a good...
Oh, jeez.
You can't have total equality. What would be the point?
Work harder, live longer. Don't worry about education.
Well, some people say that, and some people do think, though, some of the stats I read, that early retirement does end people's lives earlier, too.
Yeah.
Gives you less to live for.
Well, I'm with Joe Rogan. You got to lift in the last third of life.
Oh,
That's
God,
the main thing. Lift and TRT. Those are the tricks. Anyway, one last story before the break, and this is quite interesting. I don't know whether you consider this is with you, Scott. Is it panic mongering? But Jeffrey Donaldson warns that if things go the wrong way, from his point of view, at the next general election, the Stormont election, could be the end of Northern Ireland.
Well, that might be the voters' hope when they vote for Sinn Féin. But what will happen is the Irish don't want Northern Ireland. They don't want the problem. And also the standard of living in Ireland is much higher than that in Northern Ireland.
Right.
The GDP is higher. I mean, you can buy a house cheaper in Northern Ireland, but the general overall living sense in the Republic's much better.
Yeah.
And they don't want the
that
violence.
Didn't stop West and East Germany reuniting, though. They managed to pull that off.
Eventually they did all right.
Yeah.
But I think the Irish also have dealt with some issues in the last 10 years that they don't want to deal with again with Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
Those being marriage equality and And
So
divorce.
funny enough, what you're saying, by the sound of it, is that Northern Ireland is the home of more religious.
It's less evolved at this
fundamentalism now.
point. I think we can all
isn't
agree
that
on
extraordinary?
that.
I mean,
Yeah.
it was 20 years ago. That was the exact opposite, right?
It was.
And I assume the GDP thing per head as well.
And I think the Sinn Féin would like to return to what it was 20 years ago. And Sinn Féin, their campaign is focusing on economic issues, and all, you know, the DUP is still focusing on is God plus God equals God. So I think the younger population in Northern Ireland would like that to go away as well. I was just in Belfast doing a gig, and it's strange. You still walk through Belfast, you think, why is that shot from boarded up, boarded up, boarded up, boarded up? The economy there is it's still
faltering.
Yeah. Then you go down to Dublin and
thriving.
Yeah.
And I mean, that has a lot to do with U.S. investment. That's true.
Well, somebody told me, I haven't been there for a few years, but another comedian who played it recently said actually it's better than it was Belfast. I don't know, maybe it depends on the streets.
Well, I was just in Belfast a month or so ago. I did the Empire, and it was fantastic.
Yeah.
And the area where you're at, there's a really nice boutique hotel across the street, which wasn't there before when I played there last.
Yeah.
The transportation infrastructure is working better than it was.
It is a handsome city, isn't it? When it's up
A
in the
lovely
sky.
Georgian city. That's
where
that stands it is.
My
yeah.
family came from originally, but Dublin I think is fantastic. I mean, and when I was there was a lot of new businesses coming in as well.
Yeah. Well, they've finagled the tax laws and the fiscal infrastructure.
Very appealing for
very
Facebook
well.
and Google. They love it there.
That's it for part one. After the break, we will be tackling pressing issues such as civil war, blasphemy, and giant students. See you in a couple of minutes.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners with me, Simon Evans. My guest tonight, a man whose sharp attire is directly at odds with his hair, that's Dave Fulton, and a man who arrived in sandals this evening, not counting on the office aircon.
In honour of Jesus.
Of course. Yeah. Beautiful. Should have arrived on a donkey as well. Oh no, that's the wrong festival, isn't it? I'm always a couple of weeks late. It seems the ousting of Pakistan's president has left something of a power vacuum, Dave, and things could kick off in Pakistan. I mean, that's an evergreen headline.
What hour? What day is it? Kick off Pakistan. What do we have now? Well, first of all, I've been taken back by the fact that Khan, who is the big cricket guy, and I don't care about cricket.
Yeah.
You can troll the hell out of me for that. But he was actually ousted because he got a vote of no confidence, and I'm thinking, wow. A PM was voted out for no confidence? Where? I wonder what other country they could apply that to. I wonder if maybe some other country could take a page out of
be careful what you wish for,
ways
by the sound of it. There seems to be some suspicion.
Then, one of the guys in his government, he gets shouted out. He's his adversary. You're an American agent. You're a turncoat, and it's always a great thing in some of these countries. Is like you're a traitor. You side with the Americans. So we're still. It's nice to see we're still the bad guys.
The fact is, Pakistan has a great deal to be grateful for. I think.
Incredible amount to be grateful for. We allowed them to have nuclear weapons.
They're like the Israel of Asia, aren't they? Essentially, in terms of it is essentially an American.
Do you think we could have just flown in there with our, Team 6 unnoticed?
But it's going. It is kicking off, and of course, joking aside, I remember it was about 20 years ago, wasn't it? Benazir Bhutto was. Maybe 15 years ago, assassinated. I mean, it can kick off there very, very seriously. It's not necessarily a very helpful thing.
At least they love cashmere. That's what I admire about them. It's my favorite fabric as well. So it's worth fighting over.
Well, let's hope that they resolve their differences in a good cricket-like manner. Scott, school children are using the internet for their history homework, but they're being sucked into right-wing propaganda, apparently, according to Rachel Minto from the Naswat.
There's a coven of tiny kids that are trying to buy swastikas on.
I tell you, I cannot visit Google without finding about Holocaust denial sites. I don't know. It must be some algorithm.
And I'm assuming because I believe in the Holocaust, I'm wrong. I don't know now. They're ganging up against me. Apparently, Rachel Minto, a member of the Union for Women's Teachers, they were at a conference in Birmingham on Monday.
Did you just call her racial mental?
I meant to.
Minto.
I said Minto, but I meant
like Mentos.
Mento's probably her drag name. But anyway, they were at a meeting in Birmingham about education on Monday, and she spoke out about her concerns, worryingly, about kids accidentally coming across material that, while looking for school project material, that convinces them about right-wing subject matter.
That offsets the far left propaganda they're being exposed to at school.
I think people, ever since that kid racing cars the other day that looked a bit like an Aryan fundamentalist did that salute, right? That Mussolini salute. People are claiming that young kids are on their way to become right-wing. I mean, I think what it is they're concerned that they can't handle this because they've got so much going on anyway. And they're concerned that the parents at home are asking them to look after the kids around this issue. And they're putting the word out there, I think, so people will listen and spend more time at home looking after the kids. I think what they need to do is just educate children more. Really.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think it's just comes right back down to the internet, bad, books good.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, the internet has failed modern society. It's a social nightmare. It's a black hole. Yeah. So anything you believe in, anything at all, flat Earth, so you type it in, like, oh, there's somebody else, it must be true. And if you're swayed so easily by that, then once again, he said, you got to spend more time with your kids. If they're over there and they're swiping right, and now they're right-wingers, as a result of just something as simple as that, then maybe the problem isn't necessarily the phone or the education system.
I think, though, I've got to say, I think it's propaganda from this union and this individual in particular, trying to encourage people to be afraid of far-right extremism, because actually the teachers tend to genuinely be of a quite left-wing predisposition. Well, there were leaked videos during the COVID lockdown in which teachers were discussing among themselves quite openly the problem that their kids were now, what they saw as their kids were now at home, and they could no longer channel...
Radicalise
them. Yeah, essentially they were saying that. Well, they were saying they were going to be exposed to their parents' political views, and this was problematic.
Horrors.
Yeah.
Well, some people at this same event, Candida Mello, she made some comments about, as a result of Brexit, blah, blah, blah. So I think some of these swipes were at the current political system and Brexit as well. But I also think that hate crime numbers are up. And I think the government's looking for causes of hate crime. And I think they're looking at what kids are doing on their own when they're not being overlooked.
This is one patch. We'll move on from it in a minute, though. It said, this is the same woman. This is intensified by the government's continued attack on what they have termed the woke agenda, and their reluctance to rally behind Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, there's that.
There is no
I know, I read that
responsibility on the government to rally behind Black Lives Matter.
But I think she's saying also, and I hate to criticize teachers because they work so hard for so little pay, but I think she's also maybe indicating that teachers have had to take this scepter and run with this and teach kids what alternative viewpoints on some of these political issues are.
Well, I hope that is what comes out of it. Now, we have another one about far-right propaganda here, but this is
Alex
perhaps
Jones.
more of a cautionary tale for the kids. This is where it'll get
such a horrible little man.
A horrible, ugly, loud, fat man who needs to be silenced on a regular basis.
my God!
Yeah, it's just, and it's no surprise that him and Trump were, got into bed each other. Yeah, and now, I mean, after Sandy Hook, by the way, I've lost completely any kind of hope with America regarding any kind of gun control after Sandy Hook. And for him to come forward and make all these allegations, it was all staged.
Yeah. This was 10 years ago, to be fair, right?
2012. And he said that they were all actors stepping in, even the children themselves.
Actors,
yeah, they're all still alive. And so now he's filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in Texas. Saying, we don't really have that kind of money. And I love the fact that it was in 2019, George ordered Jones to pay $100,000 in a defamation suit, and another judge found him liable for the stuff in Sandy Hook as well. And then they had to, they listed here their assets. This is what I understand is they come with the InfoWars listed estimated assets in the range of $0 to $50,000. Yeah, me too. And estimated liabilities in the range of $1 million to $10 million.
Yeah.
So
somebody please help me budget.
Yeah, I'm like, obviously Alex is doing his own bookkeeping there as well.
Yeah.
So he's been summoned by the January 6th investigation. He's been ignoring that. He's still, touting the party line that this election was stolen. It wasn't true, which couldn't be more of a glowing endorsement for, it was a legitimate election.
I'm amazed he has employees, this guy. He says he can't pay his employees.
Yeah.
Who would work for him?
But the funny thing about him is, I'm not exactly devil's advocate, but I've always regarded him as an absurdity, right? I mean, Sandy Hook just, to me stands out a little bit as genuinely poisonous and problematic, whereas a lot of what he came up with was kind of crazy, like the Sunday sports stuff. It's like, World War II bomber found on moon kind of level of absurdity.
The Sandy Hook thing was so brutal that I think some people haven't, obviously. Some people will never recover from that, and he keeps poking at that wound.
He needs to rot in prison.
One last story about the far right. This time in Sweden, violence erupts over their attempts to rally for political parties.
Well, there's a guy named Rasmus Paludan.
Yeah.
I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. He's Danish, but has Swedish citizenship as of 2 years ago. His father was Swedish, so he's a migrant himself because he lives in Sweden now most of the year. And he's running for public office. He's been touring Sweden and burning the Quran. He started a political party called Hardline about 5 years ago. And Hardline is in protest of Muslim culture, what he says is Muslim culture. And so he's going from small town to small town in Sweden and threatening to, and then also burning the Quran in front of people in public, in town squares. And a lot of violence has emerged because of that. 26 officers have been injured and 14 civilians. Also, political parties from other countries have come forward and asked Sweden to control this, or else there will be serious repercussions because they're fearing angst and violence against Muslim populations in that.
So just to be clear, this political party, the one that's threatening to burn the book,
they've been doing it.
They haven't actually been burning the cars and doing the rioting, though.
That fighting and the violence has come out of the result of him actually burning the Quran, which he has done, not just threatened it, but he has done it. He also,
You seem to be suggesting you think that's an appropriate response to that. You think that's...
I don't. I don't believe in violence or hurting people in any way, but I think...
I mean, it is just a book.
It is any book can be criticized. You're right. I agree with you, including the Bible, including the Old and New Testament.
Wait. Has anything ever good come out of people planning to burn books in general? I mean, has anybody ever said...
It's a bit disproportionate, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, but you do get carried on like this, and people are very passionate about this for one reason or the other. But has anybody ever said we're going to burn such and such books, and has ever been universally accepted as like that's a great idea?
It sounds like
no, but then they said
it doesn't sound like a great idea, but it does sound to me as if he is doing it deliberately to provoke in order to demonstrate, and they are rising to that. Right?
He's going to very, very small towns.
What would happen if
Malmo wasn't that small
stood there
town.
and burned the book and nothing happened and nobody went? What would happen then?
Yeah, it might be interesting to see what would happen. I think if there was no violence after him burning a book, he would stop, which would be lovely, wouldn't it? And then he's also an accused and fined stalker. Who is on a 5-year suspended sentence for stalking someone since 2013. And he's been charged in 2021, this politician, with having inappropriate conversations sexually charged with young boys online, ages 13 to 17. And he's back, he's not backstepping on that, he's defending himself. So he's not an appealing person. He's 25 now, and I think he's got a long future ahead of him of this sort of behaviour.
In prison.
It is interesting that the far right is kind of emerging in Scandinavia a little bit, little spikes of it here and there.
And when you say far right, I think it might be people concerned with immigration like they are here, and they have nowhere else. They feel they have nowhere else to turn except this really unappealing person who's breaking the law right and left.
Well, that's it for part 2. In part 3, we will be discussing, we didn't get on to the huge students. I'm sure they've been bumped over into part 3. My own interest is certainly piqued. We'll be discussing the demise of streaming services, quantum blackface, Anglophobia, and huge students. I
So much!
See you there.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's 2 questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners with me, Simon Evans, Dave Fulton and Scott Capurro, and some enormous children. Tuesday's Express are reporting on teachers feeling insecure about their size.
Yeah, so teachers dwarfed by tall and big students with 14-year-olds now 3 stone heavier than they were in the 1970s.
That is substantial.
Yeah, I mean, that is another kid right there. That's another
It's
small
got to be a
child.
third bigger, at least a third as big again, right?
It's a lot of McDonald's.
But they're taller as well.
A lot of Big Macs.
Yeah, a lot of drive-through, a lot of a lot of sausage rolls. I'm sure they're from maybe poor.
Are they smarter as well, bigger and smarter? Because that's the way you want them, isn't it? You don't
I very much doubt that.
Bigger and dumber.
I think they're just
less well coordinated.
Yeah, I mean, we had these 14-year-old teenage students who have sprouted from 4 feet 10 inches to 5 feet 8 inches in the last 50 years.
Yeah.
You can't tell me it's just red meat. I mean, what else is going on?
Well,
here?
I remember
Is it the water? Are you guys putting something in the water? Is it like fluoride? Or something?
My son, he's 14 and he's nearly as tall as me now. My parents, and I remember my grandparents on her side were tiny people. I mean, it never occurred to me at the time, but I look back at them now. They were like sparrows or something,
Shrimps,
talking about. And that was like the whole generation where everyone was like that. I guess it is nutrition, I suppose.
Yeah.
The Depression beat them down.
I bet it was, yeah. It was always a class thing, I think, to some extent, wasn't it? The squires marching around and the little.
No, but some of the all the sporting figures were not from the upper classes. They were working class people.
But even then, they were wiry. Where did I read this? I think it was Shackleton's expedition, 1914. And you think of these heroic figures who survived in the Antarctic for 18 months.
They're like 5'3", the average.
Their chest size was 38 inches and stuff. The children.
Yeah.
Extraordinary. So I kind of of understand. But the thing that we're not exploring here is why are the teachers so small?
Talk about beaten down by the system. Maybe, and maybe they feel and teachers can't touch kids, right? They can't. Are they not able to defend themselves in a battle? Could they?
No. There's some videos coming up where kids have been slapping the teachers, and the teachers have been just pushing the hands away.
Really?
But they haven't actually physically struck them, and they've had to call the police, and the police show up, you know, and then they're handcuffed. Then we see the aftermath. We don't see the beginning of this, and we see, you know, an 11-year-old girl handcuffed in the principal's office, and we go, oh my God, they handcuffed an 11-year-old girl. And you're like, well, she attacked her teacher. We're like, well, was this the most extreme thing they do? No, there's way more extreme things that could happen along the ways. But yeah, once again, they don't really know what's happening on that. You know, and that's why a lot of the schools here and in America employ police officers who were there on duty.
The very first story we ever did here, the very first night, there was a school that had started employing dads. If dads had a bit of time, they were not employing, but they were just kind of showing up.
Volunteers.
Dads had free days, and apparently it changed everything.
All right. Just having them around.
Knowing they were fairly big, heavy guys, dads. You know, they weren't just weaselly dads. But,
didn't they go to work? I mean,
I know that was the funny thing. Nobody seemed to be talking about that. But I mean, maybe they were a bit older or whatever. Or,
when I was a kid,
it
would never have occurred to me to strike a teacher, to go near them.
But that's the thing, it's all about that, isn't it? In exactly the same way that civil society generally is all about that. It's all about having taboos, which you don't want to be the first. But as soon as you've seen somebody strike a teacher, you think, hang on, that teacher,
why haven't I
he
done
went
that?
down.
But we got paddled in my school. I mean, my teachers actually had paddles with holes in them so they would go through the air faster and sting you harder.
Wow.
They used to throw erasers at me and call me a cherry prep. I remember that. It was just awful.
I just got erasers. At least you got a label. I just got erasers hucked at my head.
I was wearing red
marker
trousers.
of societal disintegration from The Guardian, Scott. This is about streaming services.
God forbid, you know, the middle classes lose their streaming services. Netflix and Amazon are saying that because of budget cuts in people's homes, because people are being told constantly, you're going to be poor in a couple months, so brace yourself. People are going to hold on to Netflix and Amazon, but they're going to give up the Disney Plus channel. And Disney Plus has been doing well. All these channels have. They've seen constant growth over the last 10 or 20 years, but now they're saying...
Well, Disney Plus is only a couple of years old, right?
Right, but Netflix and Amazon...
I would imagine.
Yeah, but Netflix has been on for a while.
It's a fair play to Netflix. I mean, they were the pioneers of this. They took a hit. They were laughing stock for years, but they kept going.
Yeah, they were. And I remember when they charged for and people said, that's never going to work now because they're charging now. And then it went through the roof. But anyway, they've been... some of these companies have been around, you're right, since 2012 or a little bit before. And now those who are not well established in people's homes, like probably they appeal just to an age group, like the Disney Plus channel is going to.
Well, that's exactly. Our kids are going through it, and I'm kind of waiting. I'm going to drum my fingers and just be patient. But I want Disney Plus out. Apple Plus, which is one, and nobody knows how to use, or not Apple Plus, just Apple TV.
I love Apple TV. I use it all the time.
Right. Okay.
I did until I got a friend of mine who works a lot with computers, and he just gives me all this stuff.
Yeah, right.
I tried to look up HBO because that's the one I use the most, and it's the one that's been around the longest, I think. And I couldn't find out what they were thinking, what was going to happen to their sets.
Which was longer?
I mean, Showtime might have been around before, but they
didn't hold on.
No. Yeah, and HBO's so good. I really.
HBO, but you get those.
Amazing.
We used to buy those in boxes. That's where the box set notion came from. Wasn't it? HBO.
Yeah.
But I just read it. Slightly petty on my behalf, Maps. But Jon Stewart, who has a show on Apple TV, and he was down to 40,000 views. This is like a well-known. Like a very well-known American.
But you look what John Oliver's doing on HBO, and he's killing it.
Yeah.
Oliver's a bit easier to work with.
He,
in my experience, at least.
Times now and social media is driving gender transition. That is certainly my suspicion, and it seems that a more higher-ranking authority agrees with me. Dave?
Yeah, gender expert online influencers rush adolescents toward transition, and this is one of those things that, you know, once again, with the internet, you get so much stuff bombarded at you. And, I mean, you know, I'm, you know, arguably an adult, but when you have children suffer this and they have some mental health problems, there's depression, anxiety, and then there's these onslaught of these influencers, and they're being bombarded with this stuff. And they think, well, the reason you're depressed is you have the wrong gender, or you need this, you need that. And they're like, oh, well, yeah, this makes sense, because they're able to steer them down this minefield of questions that should be asked until they get to the point where they're like demanding, you know, to be to switch genders on this thing.
And they also said,
I think it's horrible, and I think it's irresponsible for people to actually go the part where the kids are convincing the parents of this, and they go and they get the medication, they start this. And then they get to the point where, like, I was just a phase, or I didn't know this, or I didn't have bell bottoms. If you're so far down the road, you can't turn that car around.
No.
So there needs to be, more concentration on the mental aspects of these kids, because they're going through like a ton of problems with their hormones and everything else, and they have so many questions that we can't answer on a regular basis. So they're turning to the internet, and the internet's a lying sack. So we need professionals in there, and people who actually gone through the operations of, to swap the genders.
The phrase I saw in there, which I agree with, and you sort of touched on it, they were cycling through identities. I think most teenagers go through sort of 3 or 4, try out a
I think you should really let kids, for one thing, dress any way they like.
Yeah.
It's just dressing. And also...
almost force them to.
Yeah. To play around with identity, with physical appearance, and also I think nothing should happen before puberty ever. Right?
No, nothing.
Puberty should maybe be a starting point, but maybe hormone blockers just to buy time until they're older and can make a decision.
Nothing until until
maybe a soy latte.
Until they get the hair growing where they're supposed to be going, and then you make this.
Anyway, listen, we've got a much better story to get onto here. This is from the Tuesday's Mail, Scott, with the. Arizona.
Oh, I love this story.
This is fantastic.
In Scottsdale, a very wealthy white town in Arizona, a DJ had been brought in to raise some money at a public event where he's going to play some music for some kids. They did raise $300,000 for essential program services at the local unified school district. But 2 local diversity, equity, and inclusion experts who've been hired locally to bring diversity to a town that's 89% white and 1.2% black. I looked up the statistic. And Jill Lassen and Stuart Roden saw this DJ, who's an African-American, and they accused him of blackface. And they wrote a letter against him to the local council.
Do we have a picture of him? I hope we can see him.
He's a guy about my age. He looks fantastic. He looks
There he
adorable. Looks fantastic.
I mean, those are obviously... I don't know if it's a wig, but it looks like he's going for a bit of a 70s kind of look generally. But,
because anyone can dress up how they like. And then... when the guy, when Stewart, when it was pointed out to him that he was wrong about this and that his action might be considered racist itself, he doubled down and he said, I think that guy's wearing makeup to make him look even more black than he already is.
Only in Arizona.
Oh, Scottsdale.
Only in Arizona.
I'm going to be in so much trouble when they find the foundation.
Concerned white people, CWPs.
You were telling me the average annual salary there was what, like
$125,000.
Yeah, so they raised $300,000, which is essentially like 2 of their parents' salaries. That's it. I mean, they probably raised that from, they were trying to raise some money, and their parents went, oh, I got the money.
Yeah, here you go.
There you go. Now, into that. Meanwhile, the only black guy they've seen in 24 years shows up, and they're like, well, obviously, we can't have a black person here.
He was actually questioning the PTA, the Parents Teacher Association, saying, what's your stand on blackface, this guy who's the diversity specialist? And they're saying, we don't have a stance. It's wrong. Well, there you go. Then I'm right. Well, no, he's not. It's he's what? Wait, in Scottsdale? Oh, it's hilarious. You don't write
There goes the property values.
I'm going to get accused of old face, I think. You're on 56. Look at that beard. Clamp down on Anglophobia undermines genuine racism cases. This is in the Times, Dave.
Yeah, clamp down on Anglophobia undermines the genuine racism cases. And Claire Favor, a conservative councillor, said English residents of her area reported suffering abuse. Now, Anglophobia, this is the fear of English people, right?
Yep.
I'm with her, man. You guys scare the hell out of me. I mean, you do. I mean, I have been in all over the world in places. I've been in America where people walk around with guns, but you walk through Trafalgar Square at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday night. Yeah, I'm afraid of English people. Mainly white people, very drunk on stag nights, willing to just punch something and see what's going to go down. But you can't. I don't think you can. Bridge this over to like, well, we have to treat this the same. Way we're going at it with like, Islamophobia, that kind of thing. Like, well, Islamophobia is a religion. Anglophobia is not a religion. It's just that you were lucky enough to be born white, so you'd have to worry about all the crap that anybody who might be a minority have to go through, like in America, getting pulled over for being black on a regular basis. So, yeah, I think it's just more ways to she's just stirring up votes here.
I think it's a weakness among I don't think anyone English in Scotland. You might encounter some prejudice, you might encounter some real bigotry, but it's a weakness to start complaining about it, isn't it? It's like kind of have we entered that world now where we're all just trying to claim victim status? It's the only way to get anything?
You can probably use it to your favor, especially as a comedian. I think the farther north we go, the more brutal the sense of humor gets. And if you appeal to that sort of brutality, you're fine. Doesn't matter where you're from, really.
OK, the next one we've got is something about alien invasions, Dave, I think. Have you got this one?
Nope.
We've leapt ahead a couple.
Oh, OK.
Because we're running out of time. But,
Lord.
Well,
yeah.
we have
aliens.
Alien invasion. We've gone
there we are.
All the way to the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is what I love, the fact that they say we have to start broadcasting because aliens are going to be able to find us. Look, if you're able to travel clear across the universe, do you really think that you're going to lack the technology to go and...
To identify
Where's
us?
America? Turn on the radio. Turn on the radio there. Maybe we'll hear Nick Ferrari yelling at us.
It's why I want Elon
Alex
Musk.
Jones.
It's why I love Elon Musk on Twitter, because he'll give us the information through Twitter from space. He's got all of it. He's going to be up there. I want to know all this stuff. I want them to know where I am. I want the Martians to
This is
find
why
me.
Trump wanted Space Force, to defend us from the people coming in, zeroing in on our radio waves. And
the weird thing is, though, this has been discussed for a number of years now. We've been sending out signals, we've heard nothing back, and there's all these discussions. Is there a, what do they call it, the Great Filter or something? So there's this idea that all civilizations reach a certain point and then collapse necessarily, and are we facing that? Because otherwise, statistically, by now, we should have heard something back. And a possible solution to that is that whoever has heard our message is, like, planning the invasion now.
Or they're over it. They're not even interested.
Or they were making a huge detour around this going,
I think we
heard what these guys listen
I know.
No way.
Man, have you heard Acid Rock? I think they think that we like them more than they like us. I think it's that kind of thing, Bit too needy. I think it might be that. Really, like, come on, you guys, play
And
along.
then they're thinking, like, well, you know, the poor women aren't living very long, so I don't want to go in there and start eating what they're
I think we're the Northern Irish to the Irish. I think they don't want to deal
Well,
with
there
it.
are no good stories, are there, about ships arriving on foreign shores? We want to
None. They don't want the chaos.
Our template. Our final story for the evening, gentlemen, is about a 30-stone gorilla. Scott, you've got this one.
There is a 30-stone gorilla in Chicago's Lincoln Park Zoo who has become a bit addicted to iPhones. And he's watching a few too many YouTube videos, and zookeepers want him out there being, a gorilla selling tickets.
This is like he watches them through the glass or something?
He does. The people come and watch.
Yeah.
They've heard that he likes them on the internet, so they come, they bring their phones, they hold him, and they let him watch videos, whatever he wants. And he'll point to things he likes, they think. I think he's just pointing. Anyway, he performs for them, they perform for him, but the zookeepers wanted to be more of a gorilla, whatever that is to be. Someone who's scratching and itching and, jumping around, and doing all that. Very well done. And they want him, and he's misbehaving. He's not doing what he's told to do. So they're
and now I did see, and there's fears that the other gorillas might bully him.
They might bully him.
There's a sense that they're taking advantage of his.
I think what they're afraid of him is becoming too human and being unable to be as brutal as he needs to.
See, I would go up there with my phone and just start playing, scenes from King Kong, going, huh?
Yeah.
Well, it's a problem because they're roping off the area where people used to view him. That really special bit where you get to walk up and see him through they're roping that off and keeping people away. So he's become the Mona Lisa. They can't get as close as they want.
This is our fate, of course, when the aliens, isn't it? They'll keep a couple of us in cages and just hold up their
we're lucky.
Their
Survivors.
What's that pay? What's that pay? That's what I want to know.
But this is who books that. But this is what's going to happen as older comedians too. When we're 10 years from now, people are going to come to see us, just stare at us, watch us. God, they're that old. And
do you think? Have you ever seen? There's some great dog videos, and there's one I saw recently where they do like the cup trick, and the dog sort of. Have you seen that one? Taps it with its paw, and then it's disappointed.
Yeah.
Thinking, it feels to me like that dog is performing for the phone. I'm sure its faces are like. Because they know, apparently dogs have learned how to do a Pixar face with the eyebrows because they get rewarded for it.
They react to human faces, not just voices, so they can see someone going,
We're moving into an era with
I'm still stumped by the one where they hold the blanket up and they look up and they drop it. That still blows me away.
I know, absolutely extraordinary. Well, folks, that's all we have time for. Thank you very much, my guests, Scott Capurro, Dave Fulton. I've been Simon Evans. I hope you've enjoyed your Easter weekend roundup. I will be back here tomorrow. It's a regular Tuesday night, but we'll do our best to make it special. See you then. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. Good night.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and every weekday we bring you The Briefing live from 9:30 a.m. The stories, analysis and live debate that you need to hear.
Quite right, Tom, of course.
Was this something that had been considered at all?
Difficult to answer.
Gas-guzzling helicopters circling. Noise is being made here. Joe Biden walking out. Thank you very much for joining us. Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, Monday to Friday, 9:30 a.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Tonight on Farage, the Archbishop of Canterbury could not let the Easter Sunday service go without attacking the government as being ungodly over their Rwandan migrant plan. We'll debate, was he right to do that? A poll finds 72% of people think the Prime Minister is a liar. Is that okay? Do we just accept those sort of things these days? And joining me on Talking Pints, the first wag and all-round celeb, Lizzie Cundy. But before all of that, let's get the news with Polly.